Board of Trustees. First budget meeting for FY25 is in order. And the first item on the agenda is a budget overview. Nick and Julian will do the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. It's a privilege to present the proposed FY25 budget tonight for your consideration. I first would like to acknowledge the hard work of our department and division directors and their staff. I'd like to thank them for all the effort that went into preparing the proposed budget that's before you tonight. Before we begin discussing individual department budgets over the course of the next 3 budget hearings, Finance Director Julian Priddy and I have prepared a brief presentation which summarizes the proposed FY25 budget. This presentation is intended to provide a broad overview of the proposed FY25 budget. Initiatives proposed within this presentation will be addressed in greater detail during the individual department and division budget discussions. We will first begin by reviewing the village's budget goals. We will then provide an overview of the village's revenue profile, followed by a summary of expenditures for FY25 and a discussion of the village's long-range forecast. Each department develops their budget requests with 11 strategic goals in mind. These 11 goals encompass all the village does to serve residents, businesses, village staff, visitors, and other stakeholders, and are grouped into 6 broad categories listed on these slides. First is excellent service delivery. A few ways we achieve this is through outstanding customer service, ensuring transparency, and implementing best practices. Fiscal responsibility. This is critical to ensure the village can weather financial challenges as they arise. Public health and safety. And one way this is accomplished is by maintaining an accredited police, fire, health, and public works department. Sustainability. This is important so that we can achieve the village's goal of reducing community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 35% below 2020 levels by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Long-term planning, and this is done partially through aggressive investments in the village's infrastructure. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is strived for through investing in village personnel's training and development and by making DEI a priority during the policy and decision-making process. These goals not only drive the budget process from start to finish, but they are truly lived by village staff every day as they are conducting their work throughout the community. And with that, if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Julian for an overview of our revenues for FY25.
Thank you, Nick. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. I will move through the revenue portion of the presentation by providing an overall breakdown of the revenue. We'll take a look at some key historical performance on revenue data, discuss implications on our fund balance, and then spend a few minutes talking about the water rate for this coming year. But before we get into that, I'd like to mention several newly discussed unfunded mandates currently proposed at the state legislative level. These include the elimination of the grocery sales tax proposed by the governor during his budget address for state fiscal 25. Another proposal would force municipalities to pay for retiree health insurance costs. There's also bills currently being vetted that would revert some of the savings achieved from the Tier 2 pension change enacted in 2010. And of course, as you're well aware, the current unfunded mandates that we are dealing with, the replacement of water service lead lines and the body-worn cameras for police officers. The budget as proposed tonight on both revenue and expenses does not include these newly added unfunded mandates, with the exception of the lead lines, as I mentioned, and body-worn cameras. However, if passed, they would have a significant impact on our finances. We'll spend a little more time to cover them in detail when we talk about the financial portion forecast of our presentation.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
If the governor or legislature eliminates the sales tax on groceries, does that mandate us to eliminate ours?
So the way the grocery sales tax works is it is imposed by the state, collected by the state, and remitted to municipalities and counties.
I'm talking about our add-on, the sales tax that we add on.
We do not, the home rule portion does not apply to grocery. This is only state portion that would get eliminated. I mentioned it a little later as well, but incidentally, none of the sales tax on groceries goes to the state. 100% of it is remitted to localities, and that is the tax the governor is proposing to cut.
And if I may, if you get a chance, sometimes John and Nick and Julie prepared a chart that I think will, in kind of summary fashion, outline the challenges before us, not just this year, but in the subsequent years. So, Julie, sorry.
Did you guesstimate the impact of the potential sales tax and how that?
We estimate about $1.2 million a year for us. And we'll get into a little bit more detail as we move forward. The village's overall revenue base is diverse, as noted by this pie chart. The chart represents total revenue across sources for the coming year. The total estimated revenue is just about 165 million. This excludes planned fund balance usage in the water fund and the wireless alarm funds. The largest single source remains sales taxes, with almost 37.5 million expected and 23% of the total. Interests and leases are 17% of the total revenue, and they include earnings from invested funds, both from our operating reserves as well as investing pension fund assets. Service charges at 16% includes largely water fund revenue, some ambulance service fees, wireless alarms, and smaller fees. Property taxes represents 9% of total revenue. Noteworthy is the fact that fiscal 25 represents the 34th consecutive year of the village board's property tax freeze, whereby we levy the same amount in fiscal 25 as we did in 1990. Income taxes make up 6%. These are revenues shared by the state through the local government distributive fund. That should sound familiar to all of you. We've discussed it several times in the past. Originally, when the income tax was implemented in the 60s, 10% of total income taxes collected by the state were supposed to get shared with the municipalities. As of fiscal 25, only 6% of income taxes get shared. That is a 40% reduction, and it's another reminder of the impact of state action on local finances. Other taxes at 4% includes hotel, transfer tax, telecom, amusement, packaged liquor, corporate replacement, use tax, and so on. Remaining revenue categories, although considered minor to the overall budget, nevertheless are important to specific funding priorities, like the utility tax for pensions, TIF for development, licenses and permits for operations, and so on. This chart represents the overall revenue allocated to the general fund. A total of 17.5 million is allocated for fiscal 25. As presented, almost 60% of the general fund is funded by sales at 38%, income at 14%, and food and beverage at 7%. All highly sensitive sources to the economy. Again, highlighting how sensitive our operations are and funding our operations to how the overall economy does. Service charges in the general fund includes various cost recovery charges like ambulance fees, refuse, police details, and so on. Grants or revenue from other agencies. It's a smaller amount. I do want to note that it does include some remaining ARPA funds that we recognize as revenue as our expenses are incurred for fiscal 25. Noteworthy once again is the relatively small portion that the property taxes go to operations. This year is just over 1 million. The majority of the annual property taxes go to fund pensions and debt service. We'll now take a look at a few key revenue sources, starting with our largest single source, which again is sales taxes, expected to produce 37.5 million in fiscal 25. The chart illustrates total sales tax collections by month from January of 2018 through December of 2023. The green stacks represent actual monthly collections, and the blue line represents the rolling 12-month average, which is included both to account for seasonality as well as to visualize the trends in this revenue source. And you'll see a typical green stack blue line and the remaining revenue sources will present. As indicated by the data, the sales tax revenue as appears to have normalized. As you can see, following the dip of the recession, that curve, the slope has flattened a bit, especially when compared to the prior 2 fiscal years. Beginning in January of 2021, with the legislative change allowing us to capture internet sales, we saw a jump in collections through fiscal 22 and fiscal 23 respectively at 36.5% in fiscal 22 and 10.1% year-over-year jumps in sales taxes alone. Now, by contrast, for fiscal 24, we're only anticipating a 2.85% growth from fiscal 23. That projection is what we've incorporated in the fiscal 25 budget and then in the 10-year plan that we'll discuss a little bit. I do want to note that the infusion of sales taxes we saw from fiscal 22 and 23 really amount to one-time revenue sources because they captured growth post-pandemic and the sales tax legislative change. They are not recurring increases that are due to economic performance. So in our estimation, they essentially just amount to one-time revenue increases. This chart represents monthly food and beverage tax collections, again, from 2018 to December of 2023. Prior to the pandemic, the revenue was very stable with increasing trend of about 2% year over year. The impact of the pandemic, lockdowns and closures can clearly be seen through 2020. However, this source was the fastest to recover, and barring any future restrictions or anything happening, we anticipated to perform as steadily as it's done in the past. The revenue is responsible for about 4.7 million of our total revenue budget, and a 2% growth is projected for fiscal 25 as well as the 10-year projections. This chart depicts perhaps the hardest hit revenue from the pandemic, which is hotel and motel taxes. At its worst, hotel taxes were down 77% from a high of 2.3 million. And you can see both actual collections and average dip here through the 2021 year, a fairly steep decline in the 12-year rolling average. Now, as the chart indicates, post 2021, the revenue source has recovered significantly. Fiscal 24 is projected to close at about 1.9 million, which again, although improved, it's still 20% below that 2.3 million high. But much like sales taxes, we anticipate this tax to perform at historic trends in the past. As you can see, the revenue performance pre-pandemic is fairly flat with minimal annual increases.
What was the hotel tax in 2023? I can't see it.
In 2023, we were just over 1 million. So these are actual monthly collections. They don't represent a fiscal year, trustee, but from my other data, I can tell that it was.
So I just wanted to compare it to 25, 1.9, fiscal year 24, 1.5, and then.
So let's see, in fiscal hotel taxes. So the fiscal 22 total was 1.4 million. Fiscal 23 was just over 2 million. We anticipate fiscal 24 to end at 1.9 million. And we are estimating a 2% growth for fiscal 25. Now, in contrast to the prior revenue sources I went over, this chart represents monthly real estate transfer tax receipts, again, going back to 2018. So throughout the pandemic, this revenue source showed absolutely no impact. However, since mid-2022, we believe we're seeing signs of the slowing down of the real estate market in town. This revenue source, incidentally, was severely impacted during the 2009 recession, but since its recovery in the mid-2010s, it has been very stable, relatively stable revenue source. At least on the local level, I think we are seeing the results of both high real estate prices as well as really high borrowing rates for both new and existing customers. Fiscal 24 is projected to close at about 1.3 million. We don't anticipate this revenue to change for fiscal 25, as it is becoming very unlikely that the Fed will significantly reduce rates this year and perhaps the next, with inflation remaining as high as it is. Moving on to a little bit of discussion on the general fund balance. This chart depicts fund balance or reserve projections based on the proposed budget and projections of revenue for the coming year and then the following 9 years. These figures, again, do not take into account any of the unfunded mandates mentioned earlier, but we will cover those in the financial forecast section. Now, because the village relies heavily, as you're well aware, on economically sensitive sources, like I mentioned, 60% of the general fund is funded by economically sensitive sources. It's imperative to maintain healthy reserves as a defensive measure against major revenue disruptions. In the last 15 years, we have experienced not one, but two major events with revenue disrupting effects. This was the Great Recession and the COVID-19 pandemic. Our reserve dropped significantly to the low teens after the recession in 2009, and it took several years to come up to the 25% target. Our current level of reserves was only achieved thanks to both the one-time ARPA federal assistance as well as the infusion of the sales tax revenue through 22 and 23. So the lessons learned during these events make it imperative to maintain as high of operating reserves as possible. Several communities in similar revenue situations as the village have moved their reserves to 40% or even higher. For context, a 25% fund balance would only fund 4 months of village operations, and the current level of 49% would only extend that to 6 months. Although we project a 49% fund balance for fiscal 25, the current structural deficit, meaning our expenditure growth outpacing our revenue growth, means that we project to completely deplete the fund balance by fiscal 32. As the village again cannot operate in a negative or annual deficit, should our projection materialize, we would present options for both new revenue as well as expenditure reductions to ensure a balanced budget.
The fund balance right now is 49%.
49. Moving on a little bit on the water fund and related revenue. For fiscal 25, we're projecting revenue at just over 17.5 million. Planned operational, capital, and reserve spending necessitate a water rate adjustment of 7.5% for fiscal 25. This translates to 46 cents per 100 cubic feet, and the minimum 1,000 cubic feet charge would be impacted by $4.64 to 66.52. FY25 incorporates significant capital improvements totaling 19.2 million. They include doubling the number of main miles replaced, continuing the lead line replacement program, improving metering infrastructure, and more. Significant investment in capital is funded in part by planned water fund reserve utilization. I'll note that even with this increase, our water rate remains very competitive among the 15 communities we compare ourselves with annually. As I mentioned, every year we survey the community, comparable communities in relation to water charges. This chart depicts the current minimum rate charged by our comps. The various colors represent different types of charges. The light blue represents water service. Brown is for sewer specific charges. Gray is for stormwater specific, and orange or salmon, whatever color that is, represents fixed fees. The green line represents total charges for water service. As you can see, the village in green bar remains one of the lowest in the area. And incidentally, we are the only community that charges a single flat water rate, a single water rate for all water, stormwater, sewer activities, and then allocate the expenses as necessary. If I may editorialize for just 1 minute, Palatine, currently the lowest community in that chart, just a few cents off of the village's proposed rate. charges their minimum rate every 2 months, whereas the village charges that minimum rate every 3 months. Draw your own conclusions from that. That's all I'll say. And with that, if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Nick for the expenditure discussion.
Are there any questions on the revenue side?
Thank you, Julian. Now we'll take a look at FY '25 expenditures. The village's total overall proposed budget for FY '25 is just under $176.2 million. As highlighted in this chart, the village's budget is made up of a number of separate budgets known as funds. Each fund is independent and serves a specific function. The general fund constitutes the largest portion of the village's budget, funding the majority of services that we provide to the community. The general fund will be discussed in greater detail shortly. The water fund is the next largest budget and includes the purchase of wholesale water from the city of Evanston, overhead costs associated with operating the village's water and sewer systems, as well as capital investments to adequately maintain the village's water and sewer infrastructure, including the new lead service line replacement program and a new stormwater enhancement plan that will be discussed at the Public Works budget hearing in a few weeks. The pension funds comprises the village's 3 pension systems of fire, police, and IMRF. Budgeted figures for police and fire pensions represent actual pension payouts to retirees for the upcoming fiscal year, rather than the village's contributions to the public safety pension funds. The tax increment financing or TIF fund includes the Downtown Science and Technology TIF, the West Dempster TIF, as well as the Oakton and Niles TIF district. The building, equipment, and fleet budget maintains existing village vehicles and village-owned facilities. And finally of note, the other funds represented in this chart include the North Shore Center for Performing Arts, the Community Development Block Grants, and the North Shore Convention and Visitor Bureau budgets, among others. The village's general fund budget includes the majority of services that we provide to the community. This chart illustrates village operations by function or department. The total proposed general fund budget for FY '25 is approximately $68.8 million. And as is common in most municipalities, public safety represents a majority of general fund expenditures. And the big 3 core service departments of police, fire, and public works account for approximately 71% of general fund expenditures, not inclusive of their corresponding burden to the group insurance budget. The FY '25 general fund is increasing by just over $1.58 million, or 2.4%. These increases are shown on this slide and are largely the result of 4 factors: employee health insurance increases, addressing important community issues like the increase in rat activity that we've experienced regionally over the last 5 years, partially as a result of consecutive mild winters. These costs are partially offset through grant funds from the state. Having a less tenured workforce who are still receiving annual wage increases and unfreezing several positions. And finally, the continued high inflationary environment that have impacted villages' contracted costs. Just note, vehicle parts and services and parkway tree planting and pruning alone are increasing by over $250,000. This chart illustrates personnel-related expenses that account for the overwhelming majority of the village's operating budget. In total, 84% of the general fund is tied to salary and insurance benefits. As part of the village's strategy to control costs within the general fund, the village continues to generate a significant savings from the hiring freeze that was implemented first during the Great Recession and more recently during the COVID-19 pandemic. As noted on the previous slide, the FY '25 budget unfreezes several positions, including 2 police officers. However, 40.5 positions remain frozen or eliminated, achieving $3.3 million annually. I would also like to note that the remaining 16% noted on this chart as other, most is allocated toward non-discretionary spending. So as a result, despite the overall size of the general fund, there is minimal discretionary funding available in any given fiscal year. The proposed budget continues to fund investments in sustainable operations by nearly $2.5 million to achieve the village's 2030 and 2050 sustainability goals. Last year, as you know, the village hired a sustainability coordinator who has been instrumental as an expert resource to village staff and the community while we execute the plan. Some notable sustainability initiatives included in the FY '25 budget include replacing retired fleet vehicles with 15 electric and 6 hybrid options throughout the village departments, EV charging infrastructure at village facilities to adequately charge those vehicles, and an additional fast charger at police department to charge the police electric vehicles, and public EV charging stations. Continuing the new compost drop-off program and other composting initiatives, a green business program through the Smart Energy Design Assistance Center at U of I, and native plantings on public property. The village's capital improvement budget represents investments in the village's equipment, facilities, and infrastructure resources that the village needs to provide services to the community and which generally provide future benefits with a long service life. The total CIB budget for FY25 is just over $38.4 million. This chart segregates capital improvements by category. Notably, public improvements represent street, sidewalks, and other public infrastructure projects, while utilities represents investments in the village's water and sewer systems. I would also like to note that village staff anticipates procuring over $21.6 million in federal, state, county, and grant funds over the course of the FY25 budget. A more detailed conversation of the FY25 CIP initiatives is expected during the Public Works budget hearing in a few weeks. The proposed FY25 budget continues the village's aggressive investment in residential street resurfacing. We're getting to a point where most asphalt streets in the village have been recently resurfaced. So the focus is beginning to shift more toward replacing concrete streets, which a lot of them are original to the 1930s and 1940s. But as noted on the screen, concrete streets have a much longer life cycle than asphalt streets, but cost significantly more, almost 2.5 times more. So this cost factor limits the total miles the village can resurface each year. So in FY25, we plan to resurface 3.85 miles of asphalt streets and 1 mile of concrete streets for a total of 4.85 miles. As noted on the previous slide, the village has done an excellent job of investing in resurfacing our streets over the years. But as a reminder, a number of the major arterial streets in the community are the responsibility of the state and county. And we are dependent on them to make adequate investments in their infrastructure, which unfortunately has not always been the case. This map shows what streets are the responsibility of the state and the county. It's kind of hard to see, but the red line on this map are state streets, and the green line are county-owned streets. A lot of the streets in town that are degrading to a point where they need to be fixed and resurfaced.
How long does a concrete street last compared to an asphalt street?
50 plus years.
Longer.
Much longer, 2.5 times, yeah,
But
50 plus years.
it's not cost efficient to not do asphalt and do concrete.
It's hard because you're not able to resurface as much. The engineering policy has been they are replacing asphalt streets with asphalt streets and the concrete streets with concrete streets. We haven't converted asphalt to concrete just because of the cost.
But it's a wash. It's
Right,
2.5 times more,
Long
2.5
term.
times more like,
Right.
well, it is a wash.
So currently we have a goal of reaching X number of miles per year, and so we would cut that in half. And
Yeah, I see
or-
that.
Yeah, so if there's interest in converting the asphalt streets to concrete, we can study that and see how that would play out over a number of decades, if that's of interest to the board.
Should it be done?
Can be done. It's just it costs. It's very costly.
Cost more in the short term.
And we may be at the wrong time for the concrete market
Right.
to make it work. It might make more sense in a year or two, but if it's of interest to try to make our investment last longer, we're happy to dive into that analysis.
It's more of a curiosity to me.
I'm just saying.
Does the state and the county even do concrete streets anymore?
I'm not sure. Yeah, we could find out for you.
I'm just trying to think of a state or county road that is concrete in the village.
Yeah, I can't recall. There's not one that comes to mind.
Is there a difference in environmental impact?
Yes. I don't know that I can speak directly to that, but happy to take a look at, as we look at the, the options.
I was gonna ask about that. I think this might be something to consult with Lisa, our sustainability coordinator, about. It's my understanding that asphalt is more environmental sensitive than concrete. Although,
Porous concrete is the best.
porous. It might be a whole.
When you say sensitive, you mean it's better for the environment? The asphalt streets are better or concrete?
I'm not, this is what I should ask Lisa. I was under the understanding that concrete production isn't really high greenhouse gas emissions output, but I know asphalt's not necessarily great either. So I don't.
Imagine from a longevity perspective, it seems like the concrete would be, because they last longer, you're having to replace them as much.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that the concrete streets last 50 years plus, we're saying.
Like I said, a lot of them are original.
Right, so I was kind of asking, well, that's 30 years difference than the asphalt streets. So how does that work out financially and sustainably?
I wasn't thinking about that.
If you, both of those things would be
Right.
important to,
I think we should take a closer look at all of those factors and see what.
and I don't know if any other towns have thought about that differently.
I think it's unusual to have concrete streets.
It is.
Yeah, and so
Because
it's,
I noticed when they were replacing all the streets with Evanston, with the water lines, they were concrete.
I believe they replaced concrete with
With
concrete.
concrete.
I think they did the same, the material, concrete with concrete asphalt.
Okay, got
Yeah. Except in one of the alleys, they did provide a green alley north of Dempster and near Lockwood.
Okay.
But if all of the other communities do only asphalt, I'm trying to think.
I think now is a good time to do this analysis because, 10 years ago, we really needed to invest in the residential streets. So the board has done a good job in allocating those resources to investing in the residential streets. And so they're in much better shape today. And so I think it's a good opportunity as we move into concrete streets to see if now we can do fewer miles per year and perhaps have an environmental
With a long-term
benefit,
focus.
financial feasibility, and all of those issues. So,
Yeah, this is a reservation for
okay.
Absolutely.
Your forecast this year will do a shade under 5 miles.
That's right.
4.8, yeah. 4.8. So this slide illustrates several notable building and equipment replacements planned in FY25. Included in this CIP is the replacement of a fire engine pumper and replacing the village's outdoor emergency alerting sirens, the replacement of the HVAC system at Fire Station 16 and the chiller at the police station, the continuance of our annual refuse and recycling cart replacement in the Public Works Department, and the purchase of 4 electric vehicles, 4 hybrids, and an animal control vehicle in the police department. Would like to note that the picture on the top right is an electric Chevy Blazer that's made specifically for the police department for patrol. And we currently have 2 on order from the current FY24 budget. So we'll get some time, hopefully we'll get them in late summer and have a chance to test them out and see how they work for our operations.
Is there still a backlog on vehicles?
There are, yeah, we have these vehicles on order, but they haven't even hit the assembly line yet. So we're hoping for a late summer, maybe early fall delivery, but we're experiencing that with all our fleet vehicles.
Because I think a couple of the communities actually went out to car dealerships.
Yeah.
And tried to buy off the lots.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't order them.
We ordered a number of hybrid police vehicles recently, and we had to buy them out of Massachusetts.
Was that right?
And we also ended up finding some on car lots as well. And so it was, but the board's direction to allow us to be nimble and to move quickly has allowed us to do that. And so that policy has worked out very well.
It sounds like we have different types of like cars, brands, if you will.
We do. And so we're trying to experiment. We have a Ford in place now. We have a Tesla in place. And so we're exploring and experimenting with different manufacturers But for police specifically, because the Blazer is designed to be a police pursuit vehicle, we're not gonna be rolling out the Blazer in Public Works or fire. It will be specifically for police, but yes, we do have a variety of manufacturers on board at this point.
Is the pumper a brand new vehicle or is it reconstructed?
No, that's a brand new Pierce vehicle, yeah. And, yeah, we have 3 on order right now that won't even be delivered for another 2 years. There's a 4-year lead time for fire apparatus, which is once we order it and pay for it, it takes 4 years for it to get built because of the supply chain. It was typically it's a year to a year and a half, but that's been expended. No more questions. I'll turn it over to Julian for a look at our financial forecast.
Thanks again, Nick. At this point, we've heard from Nick and myself on our expectations on both revenue and expenditures for the coming year. Spend a few minutes discussing how we see these play out in the financial reality over the next 10 years. As mentioned, most revenue sources have stabilized post-pandemic, and we believe we're now back in the trend growth days, not just for revenue, but also for our expenditures. On expenditure side, our personnel cost increases are expected to be manageable based on our history over the several decades. Likewise, health insurance increases, although they are unpredictable, have been manageable and are expected to be manageable because we do have several available levers to pull when we do meet high increases, like plan design changes, saving measures, and so on. We continue to prioritize capital investment in light of the aging infrastructure, as we discussed, and we continue to maintain the strategic hiring freeze, which as of fiscal 25 is again 40.5 positions. But most significantly, as mentioned earlier, we're once again dealing with new unfunded mandates from the state of Illinois. Let's take a look at what the state is again trying to do and how it threatens our finances. As I mentioned, the governor included in his budget proposal the elimination of the sales tax on groceries. Again, no portion of this tax goes to the state. It is 100% distributed to municipalities and counties. Skokie alone would face a 1.2 million revenue deficit should this measure pass. Also being discussed are measures related to pensions and retirees. One proposal would force local governments to cover retiree health insurance costs to age 65. We estimate this measure to add another 1.1 million in annual costs to the village. In addition, the legislators considering clawing back some of the savings provision implemented with the Tier 2 Act in 2010, namely a reduction in age for full paid pension for Tier 2 employees, as well as a reduction in age to achieve full cost of living increases. We estimate the impact of this change to be about $450,000 on an annual basis. There are additional proposals out there that would actually revert Tier 2 completely to Tier 1, but it's impossible to cost them out and kind of evaluate their how serious they are at this point.
But this is a conservative number.
This is a conservative number, yes. So in total, these combined mandates would cause a 2.8 million annual deficit for the village. Now, besides that, in order to cover non-discretionary annual increases, which we believe to be approximately 2 million, including personnel, health insurance changes, and other mandatory costs. Now, based on observed trends, we anticipate a 1.7% growth on the revenue side, which would produce approximately 1.2 million in new money every year. When you add the state mandates, the 2 million in annual cost increases, and net out the 1.2 million in new revenue, that brings us to an annual deficit going forward for the next 10 years of about $3.6 million. Now, what does it all mean?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
For covering the retirees until 65, what's the average age that a public safety employee retires?
Commonly below the age of 55.
So you estimated like 10 years of They retire younger.
They retire, yeah.
Some do, some don't, but it's common to
So
retire younger.
you averaged it at 55.
We estimated about 10 years worth of healthcare coverage.
Isn't it more? Didn't retirement go up to 67? So it'd be 12 years?
Medicare. The 65 is the Medicare stock. So we
Okay.
would have to cover them until Medicare.
Right.
Okay, so it's only.
Social Security is 67.
So it's interesting that, I mean, they know that the public safety retire younger and they're requiring it to be paid until they're 60, till they can get Medicare. And that the grocery state tax, none of it goes to the state, so they're only hurting the municipalities, and that's what they chose to. Just saying out loud. Okay,
I think you just kind of illustrated the double whammy,
right,
take money and cost us money.
but not cost the state anything.
That's right.
Okay, I just want to make sure I
No,
understand.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yes.
So before we get too far, again, just a reminder that the budget as proposed is balanced. There is no deficit in the fiscal 25 budget because again, it does not include these unfunded mandates that are still up in the air. They're not yet approved or passed through the legislature. However, if they do pass, if they do come to fruition, we're talking that 3.6 million in deficits. What you see here in this chart represents both revenue, which is the dark green line, and expenditures, the red line, how they play out for the next 10 years based on those assumptions, and how they impact our fund balance, our reserves, which is the light green line. While we begin this exercise with 34.6 million in available reserves, that is fiscal 25, the very bottom line in that chart, we would completely deplete the fund balance by fiscal 2030, and we would end the 10-year period with a negative, again, a theoretical negative fund balance of 43.2 million. I should note, these projections should be taken in the context of the various assumptions we employ, as well as these unfunded mandates and the potential for them becoming reality. But like I mentioned in a prior slide, as we prepare a budget each year, we look closely at revenue, we evaluate their performance, we evaluate assumptions for the future, and should we approach a year where we anticipate a deficit, we will present both new revenue and expenditure reductions to the board for action. So in essence, this chart perhaps will always look this way, and we will do our best to never get to that 10-year mark because we will propose actions to eventually have a more balanced budget year after year.
The earlier slide that you showed with the fund balance, did that include these projections or not?
It did not.
Did not. So even without the proposed changes in legislation, we're still operating at a negative.
We have a structural
No.
deficit. We have a
We have a
structural,
structure-
For the fund balance.
Not for fiscal 25. Going forward, even without the mandates, we do have a built-in structural deficit. In essence, our revenue grows slower than our expenditures. What we do during budget time, we move the levers of reducing expenditures in order to get to that balanced budget. But
Okay.
yes,
And then on top of that, this is the projection.
correct. That is all I had on this. I'll entertain any other questions.
Maybe it's helpful just to show that smokestack chart, just in comparison of what the outlook looks like compared to if the changes are made at the state level, just to compare apples to apples. Yeah. So it takes more years to get to the deficit spending without the state making these changes. As we look at the horizon, it seems like the grocery tax elimination is the one that is staring us in the face the soonest. And
We also
so,
don't know if there'll be other state mandates
that's right, exactly,
during this timeframe.
that's right. And then we should go back to the 10-year.
You know, and bear in mind, these state mandates are fixed costs, like lead pipe replacement and if we do re-engineering of the stormwater system, those become annual fixed costs from here on, which could be $5 billion a year, man.
In what ways are municipalities engaging with the government right now as far as the impact of the grocery trade tax elevation?
So, the village is a member of the Northwest Municipal Conference, and so that's a group of approximately 50 municipalities in the area. And that organization is very active in communicating that this is detrimental to municipalities. And the Illinois Municipal League is also very involved in communicating with the governor and the state legislature. And both of those organizations have lobby days during the session. And so next week is IML is going to be present, but there's meetings have been requested in order to meet, directly with the governor. There's been extensive interaction between the lobbying firm of Northwest Municipal Conference and the state legislature and the governor's office. And so there has been extensive communication and making it known that this is detrimental to municipalities, but there does seem to be interest from the governor's office for this to be part of that budget that starts July 1 for the state. And there's a little bit of precedent because during COVID, this tax was temporarily suspended. And so there was other revenue that was used to fill in during that time from the state. But, I think all of the stars are kind of aligning for this to be front and center right now in front of the state. And so if it is implemented or if it is approved, would it go into effect July 1 of this year? Would it be January 1? Would it be July 1 of next year? All of those are possible or another date. And so, but the read from all of these organizations that are communicating how detrimental this is to municipalities is that there seems to be a likelihood that this is going to be approved.
Since we're talking about Springfield, is anybody talking about bringing our distributed fund rates back to pre-Rona?
Yes, that continues to be one of the items that the municipalities are advocating for. And so the trend seems to be that the state will give us a slight uptick in the local government distributed fund, but it has not yet reached the contractual agreement that was reached years and years ago between the state and the municipalities. And so our revenue source continues to not be whole as it relates to the local government distributed fund.
I think we're 6.5%.
6.8.
We're hoping maybe we'll get a little over 7 this next year.
I want to go back to the
10.
Like to the 10.
We were at 10.
8. We were 10?
Yes,
Way back.
10%.
That was before my time.
Well, COVID, just before COVID. And there was an agreement among municipalities and the state and other units of government that we would all take a haircut because of COVID. And that it would be restored in full once COVID was over.
I guess COVID ain't over.
They haven't restored it. And they're not going to. We have to face reality. Hopefully we can get a slight increase every year and maybe we'll get back to 10% someday.
When the Northwest Municipal, everybody's lobbying, what are they asking for? Are they saying, can the state help take some of this hit and not just the municipalities? What are they asking for?
Well, we're making it clear that this is an important revenue source for us. And there's municipalities that have made sales tax sharing agreements that relate to this. So they may have incentivized a grocery store to come and share some of this. And now all of a sudden the state's going to take away that revenue source. And so, but state your question again.
I'm wondering what their ask is of the state around this issue when they go and they lobby. What is it?
So it's first and foremost to do not take revenue away from municipalities.
Okay.
If the revenue is gonna go away, can it be backfilled with a different source? Is there another source that's more palatable to the governor and state legislature for the municipalities to remain whole? Is there,
Not just one time though, it has to be a reoccurring
Right,
source.
and so there's some brainstorming that's going on by some of the legislators of is there another revenue source that could be implemented? And that's sustainable. But that becomes problematic because does it grow the same way that the sales tax on groceries grow? And currently all the municipalities know what their annual revenue is from groceries. And so if somehow the new tax would be related to some type of sin, whether it's casinos or gambling or who knows what, how will that money compare the amount of money from the grocery tax? And then how will that money be distributed to the tons of municipalities in Illinois? And so first and foremost, keep us whole, do not take away the, the revenue source of the grocery tax. If it is taken away, is there a tax source that could be used to backfill it? If that, all of those fail, then it's the implementation date. Can it be delayed for a year, July of next year, so that municipalities can plan? I mean, we're at the point of proposing a budget. Some municipalities had a January 1st budget, and so the timing of July 1 of 2024 is problematic. So if it is going to be forced down municipalities, is there a way to delay the implementation?
What the governor says is, we will create a law by which municipalities can impose their own grocery tax.
none
You
of
want to
the,
take that vote?
none of the options are saying, we want this, so we're gonna help take a hit on it as a state. They're making, none of those are being talked about. Like, how can they help us a little bit, even if they decide to eliminate the grocery tax?
Right, from one perspective, it's a way for the state to look good, eliminate a tax.
Yeah.
And then it's on the back of the municipalities. And oh, by the way, we've mandated some of these other expenditures that municipalities have to fund.
No, I totally see that.
And another way to look at it is 1.1 million. In order to hire a new police officer, it costs us 125.
And with benefits more.
So you're talking about 7 police officers. I mean, it's not inconsequential to communities. Any questions? If not, first item, the Board of Trustees, it's page 34 of the budget message and page 12 of the detail. The budget is currently 288,148. The request is 289,563, which is an increase of $1,415. Due primarily to scheduled longevity adjustments and the cost of having the boards and commissions reception, which had been held in advance beginning in 2019 with COVID. Are there any comments or questions? No. The next would be the Liquor Control Commission, page 39. No increase, $2,200. And the next would be the village clerk, which is page 43. and that's an increase of $925. The total budget request is $185,654. The $925 is scheduled salary increases, increased postage. Questions about that? Administration, John?
Thank you, Mayor. So the administration and general services budget includes a number of different operations within the village, the manager's office, human resources, communications and marketing and community engagement, as well as technology. And so you'll hear from representatives of those disciplines as well. But for the manager's office specifically, the budget is decreasing largely due to accounting of moving the communications manager to the communications budget. The budget does include taking a part-time employee to full-time due to the FOIA increases. 5-6 years ago, we were only having 800, 900 FOIA requests on an annual basis. We're now greater than 2,000 per year. Most of the FOIA requests are from police in the police discipline. All of the departments, all of the operations receive FOIAs, but the increase has largely been in police. The one contributing factor, a significant contributing factor, is the body worn camera program. Again, the village implemented that in ahead of the state requirement, but again, the state mandated that every municipality have body worn cameras. And there are capital expenses with that, but there's also expenses and resources required for the FOIA requests. Just as a reminder, in an incident, there will be multiple police officers present. And so when we receive a FOIA request for body worn camera footage, if there's 5 police officers, all 5 of the officers' body cam footage has to be reviewed. All of the public spaces have to be redacted. And so every FOIA that is supplied has to have that redaction process, whether it's the body worn cameras or paper documents. And so responding to FOIAs has a statutory deadline. And so we have to process them in a timely fashion. And so it's just no longer, we're no longer able to process the number of FOIAs that we're receiving with the current staffing load. So the part-time position is proposed to go to full-time. It'll be a management analyst position, and in addition to the FOIA responsibilities and body worn camera, we'll be able to support policy research and data analytics as well as project management. Also included in this year's budget, the proposed budget, is the triennial community survey. And so we conduct that survey every 3 years as a way to solicit input from residents. And there's a cost of about $19,700 for that initiative. And with that, I can open it up to any questions or comments, please.
In instance of like the first FOIA requests, they're concerned with like what percentage of the FOIA requests?
70, I think it's around 70%.
How much time does it take to redact like the cases of when something's?
The body worn camera, I think, Alex, was an hour and a half, 2 hours is a typical request for body worn camera.
So we're utilizing technology and trying to use artificial intelligence. But what happens is every condition has to be precise. The sun has to be just right. The camera has to be facing just the right direction. And so then the public's face is automatically redacted. But what we're finding is we have to go through, because it's never ideal conditions, and we're having to redact every single face. And so it is, it's one thing if there's a FOIA that says we want this officer's camera from this time to this time, and it's another to say we want all of the body worn camera footage from this incident. And so it can be one incident can be 45 minutes of footage. And then if you have multiple officers there, you have to go through each segment of that and make sure that the public's not represented. But to give you a sense of by department FOIA requests, this kind of chart just shows the different disciplines we have: building, administration, engineering, planning, health, fire, legal, police, public works. And so all of the departments are receiving the FOIAs, but the police, and the graph you know, the measure is slightly different, the scale is slightly different. But in police, we're having between 150 and 200 per month. So it's really significant. Absolutely.
Time to talk about the public survey. I know the last time we were here, we talked about making sure that it was in multiple languages. Has all that been expanded?
We're starting to have conversations with the firm currently. And so that's one of the Alex Franz, our assistant to the village manager is working on that project. And that's one of the items that we're working on.
Next up, Deborah Stinson, Human Resources.
Okay, I just want to do right now a quick overview of what we've done for the past year. And one of the things that I think was really significant is during fiscal year 24, we partnered with Skill Path Star 12 Training and Development Division to assist us in identifying courses for our first line supervisory staff members. And we established a 10-week web-based training program utilizing Star 12's course library. There were 25 participants who were required to complete 10 management core courses, which included communication, conflict resolution, time management, problem solving, developing others, team building, leadership, integrity and trust, career development, and emotional intelligence. So the participants were also granted full access, and this was like the cherry on top. They were granted full access to a 12-month membership to Star 12, to their entire library of over 2,200 training resources, including courses, learning tools, articles, and much more. It's a ready resource resource. I hate to use that twice, but that's pretty much what it is. And now I'm very excited because we now are asking for approval to train our supervisory staff, our senior level supervisory staff. Now that we've invested training and time for the first line supervisory staff, we want to address some of the training needs that would be appropriate and applicable for our senior level staff. So we'd be talking about department heads and division heads during the fiscal year 25. And this cost would be in the area of $20,000. One of the other things that we did last year is we transitioned our EAP provider. The new relationship with Aspire became effective in June of last year, and Aspire offers counseling support, legal assistance to employees, financial consultation, and work-life information and resources. And they are accessible via telephone, their website, they have an app which can be downloaded. And these resources may be utilized to ask questions, request services, or receive immediate counseling support via their Talk Now option, which basically gives the employee the opportunity to speak to someone immediately, which is very unusual, but that's a part of their program. And services up to stated limits are offered at no cost to the employee. And in March of this year, Aspire was acquired by Accenture. There haven't been any changes with regard to the resources that we're able to utilize, that we can avail ourselves to. So we're really excited.
How many sessions do they get?
They get up to 3 sessions.
And what about the talk now is considered a session?
Talk now is considered, talk now, you can do it anytime. No, so no, it's not one of your sessions.
But it's only 3 sessions.
Yes, 3.
3 sessions of in-person or 3 sessions with.
It could be in person or it could be via telephone. But what they do is, what we've experienced with our employees that have utilized it is that all of their sessions have been in person. They can elect to have in-person sessions. But the thing is, you have to also find a provider to do that. And sometimes that can be challenging.
Do you know what the utilization rate has been?
It has not been a lot. It's relatively low. And that's been historical.
So like public safety isn't using it for the most part.
Not really, no. No, they're not using the EAP program.
Yeah, it's, I mean, statistically, that's true, like they don't, yeah. So, but I wonder how we can, it's a benefit, how we can get it used more.
Yeah. But one of the things that public safety does do is they have to have by law, the mental health checkup. So there's a resource that the members of the public safety, fire and basically police that they utilize. So that's one of the reasons why they don't utilize the EAP. If they didn't have that resource available, they might utilize EAP. But we do have employees that utilize it, but the utilization is nowhere near what you might expect it to be. It's low.
I think that's true everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just the case. It's the nature of the beast.
About wellness, I know you talked about mental wellness, physical wellness, incentive programs.
Well, that's something that we're not doing today, and we haven't budgeted for it on the human resources side. However, I do know that there are some wellness initiatives that are being considered out of the manager's office as well, so.
Another group in health insurance budget. We're
Okay.
looking at doing that.
How's recruiting?
I'm sorry, how is
Recruiting.
recruiting? Okay. Well, it's alive and kicking. And I think we're doing well with regard to it. We're getting good responses to our job postings, to our ads. I expect that to continue. Yeah, I don't see that we're having any issues with regard to it for our non-public safety positions.
Are there any active partnerships or programs that you're utilizing to find talent?
Basically,
Colleges and such?
actually, what we're doing is utilizing various community organizations. We're posting our jobs everywhere we can possibly post them. They're being posted on social media. The communications team is assisting us with regard to that so that the positions are posted on our different social media pages. And community organizations, we have a list that we send the positions out to, Greek organizations. It's about 150 resources, organizations that we send them to. So it's out there. And we're getting good response I would say we're getting good response for the majority of our positions in which we're recruiting. Except public safety.
One is just posting the sign.
Yeah.
The second step is going to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just kind of.
You do, yeah. And that's what we're doing. Our benefits specialist, HR specialist / HR specialist in the HR division reaches out to the organizations and is looking to develop relationships with them. Because that's important too. If people know you, it tends to work more in your favor.
And we have gone that route with police specifically. We've dedicated one police officer to be a recruiter. And so it's kind of the military model of going out and really trying to establish relationships with people high school students, college students, others, and really talk up the village of Skokie as a destination for a police career. And so we've had good success with that. And so we are trying to go to where people are and make those connections and really demonstrate what a great place this is to work. We also developed a video for the police officers as part of our recruitment effort there. And so we've got a good response from that as well. But we continue to want to recruit the talent. So.
What's the feedback been with the Star 12 courses?
It was positive. It's been positive. We did this last year in April. And so their 12-month membership is expiring this month. So around April 25th, they no longer have it. But what they can do is their departments can certainly renew them at any time, should they wish to do that. And I think it's a really good resource for, especially for supervisory people. If you don't know everything about it, you haven't done it before, it's a really good resource to help give you some information and to train you in some of the things that you should and could do.
Well, I've noticed, and not just here, but in other places too, that people get promoted to the supervisory level after being a line, whatever person, and they're great people, but they're not sure they understand what the skills they need to be a supervisor. So this sounds like this helps with that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we selected Star 12. I had experience with it previously, and so I'm familiar with it. And it's just historically been a really good resource for people because you can take any of the courses. You have a membership, you can take any of the courses that you want.
Can you tell who's taking courses?
Absolutely.
Do you know?
So I know whether or not they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
For Patrick, excuse me. Communications, page 15. Brian Meredith.
Yeah, okay.
The rolling mechanism is the best way.
Okay.
There was a problem.
Okay, well, good evening, Mayor Van Duzen and trustees and village manager Lockerbie, assistant manager Wyatt. It's really good to be with you this evening. I'm Patrick Degnan, I'm the communications and engagement director with the village, and with me is Meredith Joya, our communications manager. Last year, this budget hearing occurred on my very first day of employment with the village of Skokie, and only a few months after Meredith started. So tonight, we're really proud to give you an overview of all that our division accomplished over the last year, and also give you a look at what we have planned for the year ahead. So looking back at fiscal year 2024 first, we had a few key focus areas. One was building awareness of village services and initiatives and events through the use of high quality original photos and videos. You probably heard the saying photos or it didn't happen. Well, we really believe that and take that to heart. So we made a great effort to get a lot of photos this year. One initiative related to that goal is we began working with a local photojournalist to build up our photo library and also to help tell the village's story through photos. So we captured photos of events and programs and services, including snow plowing, the one time that snowed this winter, refuse collection, rat control operations, and many more. We also produced quite a few short videos highlighting village services. So that included an overview of our building inspections and services division, the police department's review and update of its mission and values statement, videos outlining the mapping process as part of our electoral referendum's implementation, and also several how-to videos, including how to renew your vehicle sticker online, gonna try and cut that line back at Village Hall and get people to pay online, and also how to start composting. So our goal with those how-to videos is just to remove any potential barriers that are out there to village services.
So our second highlight was promoting Skokie retail, dining, arts, and cultural experiences to both residents of Skokie and those that live outside of Skokie. We produced over 40 short videos for the Explore Skokie Instagram and Facebook channels, and we also shared those videos through our weekly e-newsletter. The videos highlighted Skokie businesses, coming attractions at Westfield Old Orchard, and village events. Notably, 2 of the videos this year each received more than 100,000 views. One was a video highlighting Titanic, the exhibition, which received over 124,000 views, and a video celebrating the opening of Skokie's International Market received over 180,000 views. The division also supported economic vitality by creating original marketing materials for events and initiatives, including the Start Your Day in Skokie coffee mug and campaign, Skokie Holiday Giftorium pop-up shop, the What a Gift campaign, which highlighted local businesses during the holiday season, Downtown Trick or Treat, and the Holiday Cookie Walk. We coordinated a restaurant month giveaway on our Explore Skokie Instagram in February, which was encouraging community members to patronize Skokie establishments during this traditionally slow winter month. And then the village also enhanced its presence on LinkedIn to highlight business successes, economic development, and job opportunities, and to showcase Skokie really just as a great place to do business.
Another focus area over the last year was just growing our audience. I mentioned we put a lot of time and effort into producing quality original content that people are interested in, and we saw that strategy paid dividends across our communications channels. Our Facebook page, the village's main Facebook page, reached more than 158,000 people in the last 11 months, which was a 400% increase from the previous year. Our Village of Skokie Instagram reached 10,000 users, which was a 9% increase. Explore Skokie, which is the channel we use to highlight the retail and dining and cultural attractions in Skokie, reached 160,000 users on Facebook, which was more than a 100% increase. And then our Explore Skokie Instagram reached the most. It reached 198,000 users, which is a nearly 5,000% increase. And the reason for that is that we started really low, but it's grown exponentially and it's quickly become one of our most engaging and fastest growing channels for sure. And all of our social media accounts have seen steady growth in followers over the last year, which has been great.
I know that the police department has their own social media. Are we also kind of tracking?
They do, yeah. They have quite a few more. I think their Facebook page has been around for
a lot
when Facebook was really popular,
Yeah.
5 or 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and so they have closer to I think 17,000 followers. So they've been doing a great job with theirs.
And one of the things that really increased their followers was when there was the lip sync video.
Oh, yeah,
When
I
the
remember.
Skokie's lip sync video was so well received, it really dramatically increased. It was great.
A lot of that content we've also used in our weekly e-newsletter, which Mondays and Tuesdays, Meredith and I spend a lot of time putting together the content for that newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday afternoon. Over the last 11 months, we had more than 1 million total email opens. Our open rate for emails increased to 57% compared to 53% for the same time period last year. So that means every email we send, on average, 57% of the people we send it to open it, which is really good industry-wide. And our emails also generated 79,000 clicks over the course of the last 11 months, compared to 71,000 the year before, which again shows that people are clicking through, they're interested in the content that we're putting out there, and we're engaging them. Of course, we continue to produce and mail out our print newsletter, New Skokie, to all households 4 times a year. We also made a few improvements to that newsletter this year, kind of standardizing the layout a bit more, including some of those great photos we've been capturing, and then writing in a really concise fashion. Moving on to another focus area is enhancing the village's presence and engaging the community. So we really strive to reach people where they are. We know not everyone has a Facebook account, not everyone checks their email, and some people don't even check their mailbox. So we want to reach them when they're out and about doing things. So we made a big effort to make sure the village had a presence at some of those big events this year, and especially after COVID, I think people were ready to get out and see people and meet people. So it was a good time for that. So a few of the major events we had a presence at this year was the Festival of Cultures. We at the Independence Day celebration, the Backlot Bash, the Trick or Treat, the Boomers and Beyond Senior Fair, as well as the Niles North Latino Parents Night. Our outreach varied, but it included information about the village's very popular composting programs, encouraging residents to sign up for our e-newsletter, and also promoting our Explore Skokie social media channels. And one thing we learned is that it's not always easy to get people to come over to your table, so you have to have fun stuff to give away. So we had some really fun giveaways, like Get the Scoop on Skokie ice cream scoops, which had Meredith's idea, which had to sign up for our social media channels. We had Frisbees, which were a big hit at the 4th of July fireworks, so throw that around afterwards. Some Skokie stickers, and then also some spooky temporary tattoos for the trick or treat events. So if anyone wants, I got some extras if you want to get that afterwards.
Kids are also good messengers for parents.
Yeah, definitely, yes, they are. And kids love free stuff, so we interact with a lot of kids. We also held our very first refuse truck youth art contest this year, encouraging middle school and high school students to send in their original artwork reflecting the theme reducing waste, which called attention to our sustainability goal of reducing waste community-wide. So we had a really good response from that. And the votes are in, and we will be announcing a winner in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be really fun.
Separately, the division conducted an extensive community engagement campaign as part of the electoral referendums implementation team. This included coordinating 3 public meetings, producing 2 informational videos explaining to the public the process, creating graphics, establishing a web page, and writing articles to educate, inform, and engage the community. We also worked closely with our community development department to gather public input on the village's ongoing update to the housing chapter of the comprehensive plan. This included encouraging residents to apply to be on the subcommittee, promoting 2 community meetings, and sharing an online survey. And finally, we supported the village's Fine Arts Commission with a number of really successful events and initiatives, but you'll hear more about that at the May 1st budget meeting.
And finally, our last focus area for the current fiscal year was updating village branding. Following the 2022 review of our village seal, a volunteer committee was formed earlier last year to guide the design of a new village seal. Over the last 11 months, that committee conducted a community survey, both online and in person at community events. We issued an RFP for artist design services. And then just recently, they selected a designer to begin work on the new village seal, which we'll be announcing soon. With that process ongoing, we also developed a policy to guide the deployment of that new village seal when it's designed, as well as our village logo, the cupola logo. And the difference between those two being that the logo is more used to represent village services and programs, whereas the seal is used more to represent official government actions and business. That leads me into the current year.
So is there any estimated timeline for when the new seal will be complete?
So we will begin work on the new design like in the next few weeks, hopefully with the new designer. And then I would expect that would, the goal would be probably end of the summer to have a final one, but yeah, so probably three to 5 months.
I also want to say that this has been very process driven. Right up, we've been engaging, working closely with the data community as well. We don't take shortcuts and did not, and I really value and appreciate that we're able to engage the Native American community, have them be the lead, and be a part of this process, as well as having it be a very inclusive, community-driven process. And I know there were some conversations about ideally having this new village seal a lot sooner, but the committee as a whole was very thoughtful in their questions and wanted to make sure that we weren't necessarily pushing the timeline that would end up in poor results, especially as we're being very thoughtful about the outcome of the village seal as well. So I want to acknowledge that you with doing that as well with the committee.
Yeah, there's been almost a dozen of us on the committee, and we put a lot of time and had a lot of meetings and a lot of good conversations. So a lot of people.
And just to echo that, I think to the committee's credit, at one point, there wasn't a satisfaction with the options at a critical kind of choice.
Yeah.
And so the committee made the decision to try to go back out and really make sure that everybody's at the table that needed to be at the table or had an interest. And so I give the committee credit for, pausing and really, working to make sure that the end result is
top
Yeah,
quality.
they ask some really great questions and it's very deliberate, their thought process and the selection, even of the candidates and going back and asking additional questions for follow-up as well.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely.
I was not questioning the timeline. I was really just wondering, just getting curious.
Yeah, it's a moving timeline, but we're hoping this summer. So that brings us to the upcoming fiscal year 2025. And our first goal for the year is to finalize the design and begin implementing the new village seal. Again, the committee will be working closely with the selected designer to develop concepts, to gather the community's input on those concepts, and then finally to arrive at a final design. And once final, the village staff will be rolling out the new seal on a phased basis. We expect that that's going to be a multi-year process. The seal is in a lot of places, so it's a lot of work to be done. And then we'll also be developing updating brand standards and tools for our staff, such as the updated PowerPoint template, letterhead templates, to make sure that the village is represented in a cohesive and consistent and professional manner.
Our next goal is to enhance the village website. As you know, the website's a very important communications tool. It receives over 421,000 visits per year. So this past year, we consolidated the website navigation menus, so the top menu, to make it a little bit more clear and concise. And we made some content improvements in partnership with the various departments. But to build upon these initial steps over the next year, we plan to complete an in-depth review of the entire website. And we'll be working in consultation with Civic Plus, who is our website provider. And this review is going to include looking at all of the web pages, and then also including our website analytics and data that shows how the visitors are using the site, how they're navigating through, and then also working with the department website leads to determine what information they feel needs to be out there. We're also going to reorganize and rewrite some of the content to improve searchability, to improve understanding, and then also to ensure accuracy. There's a number of pages that haven't been reviewed in a while. And so we really just want to touch all of those pages and make sure that all of the information that we're putting out there is up to date. And then finally, we're going to take this opportunity to refresh the design so that it aligns with these new brand standards that we're developing.
Question also about, I know we have a lot of PDFs on there, just searchability of that, or the thoughts. I don't think we can move away from it completely, but just better tagging of those.
Yeah, so one of the important things to keep for people to like people who are who struggle with seeing and need to use a screen reader, PDFs really aren't the most accessible way for people to access a website because they have to be developed very specifically in order for the screen readers to be able to read them. And so our policy has been that that important information needs to actually be on the web page itself rather than linked in a PDF. That also allows us to utilize the Google Translate on the website so that we have a number of languages spoken here in Skokie, and we've spent a lot of time this year educating the public about the Google Translate tool. So this is going to be a part of that. A part of that project is to make sure that the information that needs to be out there is actually on the website and isn't, hidden in a PDF that's attached on another page.
Do you know what percentage of our website's Wi-Fi compliant today?
I do not know off the top of my head.
A lot of the forms have been converted from PDFs to a more interactive module.
We've been slowly making progress on that, so I'll continue. Another focus area for this coming year is enhancing the village's e-newsletter. Again, it's one of our most important tools. It goes to 35,000 recipients every week, opened by close to 20,000 people. We are planning to transition from Constant Contact, which is our current email provider, to Emma, which will give us an opportunity to further enhance the design of the newsletter, give us a little bit more quality control, and to continue to build that audience. So I wouldn't expect major changes. It's going to have an updated look, but a lot of the same content that we're currently putting up there.
We're also going to continue to support economic vitality by continuing to produce original videos and content highlighting local businesses and events, producing marketing materials and promoting events and initiatives. Newly, we're going to be working on beautifying Skokie business districts, which includes developing window graphics for vacant storefronts and developing updated banners for Oakton Street and some of the other commercial corridors. And then continuing to work with our economic vitality team to market Skokie as a great place to do business.
Final goal for the year, this is really an overarching goal, but it's to engage with our community where they are. So that includes at home through our quarterly print newsletter, on their devices, through our e-news, our social media, and the website, through the media by sharing information with local and regional journalists, on the move using village message boards, banners, flyers, and signage, and again at community events with fun and useful information and giveaways highlighting our excellent services. So we are really looking forward to the year ahead and year two, and we welcome any questions or feedback you might have tonight.
Significant change, you can tell. So a lot of information, user friendly, great information. Thanks for the improvements that you've made in just 1 year. We're looking forward to the new stuff.
Thank you.
And just to piggyback on something Keith asked earlier, when we do these community events, are we providing information in different languages or?
You know, one thing we've heard through some of our conversations is that rather than translating into many languages, and there's so many languages here that it's hard to pick and choose. I spoke with a woman at the ELL Center, and she said that it's really more important for like printed handouts to be written in a really simple way using graphics and icons and visuals. There's a lot of people who have English as a second language might have translation help from a younger person in their household. So making sure that the information's as simple for everyone to understand is really the most effective way versus trying to translate things into 10 languages. And what we found too is that when you do translate something, number one, it costs a lot of money up front, and then sure enough, a week later, something's gonna change. Then you're gonna have to retranslate it. So we've been pushing people to make people aware of the website tool, the Google Translate tool.
But even if this, what we give out has the website and the translation tool, that's still giving them an opportunity to learn about it in their language.
Yeah, all of our handouts, all of our information usually incorporates a QR code and a link back to the website to get more information. We've also we've started quarterly Skokie communicators meetings where we are meeting with our colleagues from the library, from the different school districts. And so that's actually also been a really great way for us to see how do we get the message, how do we get our message out to some of those that might not be getting the message directly from us, but then also how can we help them share the message, their messages with the rest of our community.
Well, that makes sense, what you were saying. And visual things are good for many reasons, not just for people with different languages, but people that learn differently. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Welcome. Information technology, page 51 of the message, 142 of the.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, trustees, village manager, assistant village manager. It's truly a pleasure to be here. I want to start off by briefly discuss what took place over the past year within the IT department. The advancements in technology over the past year have been truly remarkable, and I'm excited to share with you a few of the most impressive developments. One notable advancement is in the implementation of the state-of-the-art networking technology by our IT staff. With the increasing volume of digital information, there's been a constant need for more efficient and reliable ways to manage emails and network traffic. And to address this challenge, our team has successfully implemented and deployed a cutting-edge solution that allows us to effectively monitor and secure our network. Although our security practices and standards were strong, unfortunately, we were one of the targets of thousands of cyber incidents that occurred last year. The response to this incident has prompted us to initiate a series of significant enhancements. Those solutions consist of military-grade protocols with 24 hours monitoring. In addition to those advancements, IT department has also focused on optimizing our network infrastructure and improving performance. We have implemented advanced bandwidth management solutions that can enable us to allocate resources efficiently, ensuring that our networks can handle increasing demands of our users. Furthermore, we remain committed to staying current with the latest technology trends, and we've implemented a robust security framework to mitigate risks and adhere to industry best practices. Our IT staff continuously monitors our systems, conducts regular network penetration assessments, and proactively addresses any potential security concerns. Another significant development I would like to highlight is the advancement in Microsoft Power BI technology. The Power BI is a tool to visualize raw data and help organizations make data-driven decisions to be more efficient. IT department has taken significant steps to introduce such tool and implement Microsoft Power BI reporting solution within several of the village's departments to create interactive dashboards and reports. Department heads can make informed decisions and take proactive measures with the help of these tools. I've noticed there was a lot of talk about translations. To improve the citizen interaction with the village, IT helped with the deployment of interactive handheld pocket translation device. The deployment of this device has transformed the way the citizens interact with various village services. Using those devices enables residents and village officials to communicate effectively, breaking down language barriers and saving valuable time. Instead of relying on translation services, guests now can have real-time conversations with village employees, reducing delays and ensuring their needs are met promptly. I've personally been seeing this tool be put to a good use. I've witnessed a citizen at the village finance department unable to communicate with the village staff due to language barrier, and the village staff was able to utilize the translation device to effectively communicate with individual to successfully and efficiently conduct their required business.
Is it on the phone?
It looks like a phone.
Yeah.
It's yes.
It's not a phone, it's a separate device.
It's
And then you say the words and it just automatically translates.
You pick the language
Yeah,
and it's in real time. You say, and
yeah, I saw
That's
that.
correct. 85 languages, and it can speak. You can speak to it, it'll speak back. You can take pictures, and you can also type. So it's pretty impressive. Additionally, IT has successfully upgraded our networking circuits and servers to meet the demand of our growing organization, and to enable an innovative workforce. Information technology department played a crucial role in organizing and hosting a series of refresher courses for the enterprise research planning software and training classes for employee cybersecurity awareness. The term ERP refers to comprehensive software solution that covers virtually every aspect of municipal management. Among other notable accomplishments that I would like to bring up, the village of Skokie was honored with 2 awards in 2023. The Center for Digital Government has recognized Skokie with City Government Experience Award, which recognizes the village efforts to make services more convenient, accessible, and efficient by leveraging technology. Skokie was only one of 9 communities across the country to receive an award for the projects that simplify the process of doing business with the village. Other winners included Austin, Texas, New York City, New York, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Irvine, California. The village of Skokie was also presented with a second award from Civic Plus. This was a Silver Civic Experience Award for innovative use of technology, improving access, convenience, and efficiency. And this time, Skokie was one of only 3 Civic Plus communities that was awarded for this program. IT department provides 24/7 operational support to police, fire, communications departments. IT has contributed to organization's strategic goals, providing valuable insights and recommendations to improve operations and reduce costs. We have worked closely with other departments, providing technical support, training, guidance, and on various projects. And during the upcoming fiscal year, IT plans for several initiatives to enhance its security, protect sensitive data and systems. And one of the most significant developments involves the replacement of existing virtual server hosts with a cutting edge and highly secure system. This upgrade will provide stability of the environment as well as reduce energy consumption. Additionally, IT will conduct a research and evaluation of cloud-based ERP software. So there are several advantages to moving to the cloud, including scalability, cost efficiency, accessibility from virtually anywhere in the world, and reduction of expenses associated with utilizing cloud for storage and operations. Moreover, we're planning to upgrade the Wi-Fi access points throughout the village with the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology. This will significantly increase the network capacity and allowing us for faster wireless connectivity. Moving forward, the IT department plans to research artificial intelligence and develop product that will automate various village processes. By implementing artificial intelligence technology, we'll be able to transform the way the village operates in the future. So by focusing on enhancing current technology, improving user experience, maintaining security, and being innovative, we're able to be at the forefront of this constantly ever-changing field. At this point, I welcome any questions that any of you might have.
Congratulations on your awards, and thank you for helping trustees who are electronically challenged.
Very welcome, sir.
Do we have any fears about artificial intelligence in terms of, I mean, I know you said we're gonna utilize it, but are we concerned about anything there?
No, so there's different parts of artificial intelligence. We can train it or it can learn on its own. We're looking at utilizing Microsoft technology. So we're talking with Patrick and Meredith potentially to embed it within the website so people can, common languages, they can ask questions and it will be answered. And so it's an exciting field, but again, you gotta be careful.
Right.
So are you saying when I ask Alexa a question about Skokie, it'll be able to tell me the answer?
Eventually, we're looking at it, yes. Ask Google or ask Alexa, yes, that's.
But I meant there's like some fears about like people pretending to be other people and calling in and I don't know.
Oh, no, we're not gonna go to that extent, but yeah, we'll try to incorporate it into websites, chats, and other products, so we can utilizing the artificial intelligence to produce reports and predictions for the future.
So more pushing information out as opposed to collecting information. Is that a fair
I
assessment?
would say so.
Finance.
It's tough to follow both communications and IT with their accomplishments. Financial management is as boring as it sounds. I would say we've been managing this past year with some staff transitions. We had a retirement of our collection supervisor from 38 years of service, a lot of institutional knowledge walking out the door. We hired someone new. In addition, we have a couple of other retirements we worked through. So somewhat new staff in finance, and we're working through that transition pretty well. Throughout the past year and along this coming year, we are planning to fully implement our new credit card processor. It had been some time since we had looked at credit card processing, and we managed to find a great new provider that has really improved the technology we offer for our patrons. For the first time, we can accept Apple Pay and Google Pay at the finance counter. Folks can pay their water bill while jogging by pushing a button on their cell phone in response to a text they receive. Our auto pay options are now much more robust. The interface is better, and so on and so forth. So we began that process, but it is a process, and we anticipate to complete it around mid-May or early June. As you are well aware, we just entered into agreement for utility tax for local tax auditing with Azavar. that came up a few meetings ago. We have begun that process, which is going to be extensive. We intend to target utility taxes and franchise fees, as well as sales taxes collected by the state in this first run. So the work in and of itself entails meetings with the auditors, setting up the data agreements between the state, the village, and this third party, looking at the data together, analyzing returns of the ComEd, NICOR, Comcast, RCN, looking at business tax filings online and confirming that all of the taxes that are due to the village are indeed coming to us. We anticipate that to take the majority of this coming year, and we'll have some results to report hopefully by this time next year, if not before. We continue to manage the lead line replacement program that has been busy work for our utility folks in the finance department. Right now, we have about 150 repayment plans that are in place through their water bill. And then an additional, I believe, 40 or so are completed payments that were folks that opted to pay upfront at once. But utility folks do a great job in kind of working with the customers through that process and setting them up correctly. And then we continue to push our payroll-related benefits to employees. Again, it's amazing to me how an employee of 10 years sometimes will come and act surprised that we offer a college savings plan through the payroll deduction. So we're working with Deborah to push out as much information as possible. Specifically, when it comes to the budget, a minor decrease this year. There's really nothing outrageous happening for fiscal 2025. We are realigning some staff. A part-time position in violations administration is being eliminated, and a full-time position is being unfrozen in the collections division. As our workload changes, as we support more and more patrons through phone, email, internet, and the counter, we find we have a need for a more general type of employee as opposed to someone that's dedicated to just parking tickets and violations administration. Otherwise, the budget is relatively flat over the past year. That's all I had. Unless there's any questions. Overstayed my welcome. Thank you.
Stick around. A motion would be in order pursuant to section 2.
Is there an opportunity for public comment at this meeting?
Big
Is
part.
there a public comment opportunity?
Is anyone wants to?
Okay, since I've been regularly making public comments, I would like to make one Thursday.
Okay.
It's not concerned our budget. It's just general public comment. Mayor and trustees, good evening. I promise you that I will be giving public comments at every board meeting until we'll take action to reform part of the department. Colleagues, we've been together for 3 years on the board, and there's yet to be any unified board action to request the politicization of our department. On Monday, I am attempting to give the board another opportunity to act. Ask for an explicit, codified ethical standard that none of the board's appointed officers will participate in the election campaigns of their supervisors on the village board. I've asked the board to hold all of its full-time appointed officers to the same ethical standards in regards to political activities. Mayor, I want to say I had the chance to read your memo to the board that was included in the agenda this afternoon, urging the trustees to not take any action whatsoever. Mayor, I do just want to, I won't expand on this, but I was hurt when I read your memo, and it starts by saying that this discussion is the result of confusion about the state of ethics in the department. Trustees, I am really pleading with you to take action sometime on Monday. I know Mayor Van Dusen is urging you to do nothing. When we discuss ethics and appointed officers on Monday, I really hope that none of you will let Mayor Van Dusen speak before me. I hope that you'll speak for yourselves, really. Trustees, this is the last policy solution to this problem that I think I would want to propose to the board. I've proposed staff changes in our legal department and rejected this proposal. I proposed updates to our appointment processes for village attorneys, and you rejected this proposal, and then I proposed a clear code of ethics for village attorneys, and the mayor is asking me to reject this proposal. Colleagues, there are 7 of us in this board, 7 policymakers. To be very brutally frank, I am really tired of being the only member of the board that's working on policy solutions for the problems in our legal department. During Monday's meeting, I implore you to work my current proposal or something similar. But if you do not, I will respect that. But I implore you, if you are unwilling to support my proposal, I ask you to please come to the meeting prepared with an alternative policy solution that can lead us in the direction of conflict resolution. That's my request of the board. If my policy solution is unacceptable to the board, I really implore you to bring an alternative solution so we can find some agreement. Because I think we need to move forward. Action.
Okay,
Make the motion to go in executive session.
pursuant to section 2, paragraph C.2 of the Open Meetings Act, a closed session is requested to discuss wage and benefit of all village employees and to adjourn therefrom. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are in